I rise with the advantage over the noble Lord Clement Jones that I'm only going to speak to one amendment in this group. Therefore, I have the right page in front of me. So I can note that I rise to speak to Amendment 252, tabled by the noble Lord Clement Jones, and also signed, as well as by myself, by the noble Lord Watson of Wyre Forest and the noble Lord Maud of Horsham. Now, I want to apologise that I wasn't with the committee earlier today, but I was actually at what was curiously interrelated. I was chairing a meeting about the microbiome, and one of the issues that came up in that meeting was the issue about data and the management of data, and the great uncertainties that remain, for example, about if your microbiome, one element of your microbiome, has been sampled and the data is put into a database, who owns the data about your microbiome? Actually, there is no legal framework at the moment to cover this at all. There is legal framework about your genome, but there is no framework about your microbiome at all. And I think that's a useful illustration of the fact of how fast this whole area is moving, how fast technology, science and society are changing. And I will actually say that I'm not going to blame the government for the fact that this is a gaping hole that's actually an international hole, and it's a demonstration of how we need to race to catch up as legislators, as regulators, to deal with the problem. Now, that relates to Amendment 252 in the sense that perhaps this is an issue that's just arisen over time kind of accidentally, but I want to really credit a number of campaigners, among them James O'Malley, who was the man who drew my attention to this issue, but also Peter Wells, Anil Powell-Smith and Hadley Beeman. People in society who've seen a really simple, basic problem in the way that regulation is working and are reaching out to, I'm sure, many noble lords in this committee. And this is a great demonstration of how campaigning at least has gone part of the way to working, and I very much hope that, if not today, sometime soon, we can see this working. Because what we're talking about here, as the noble Lord Clement Jones said, we're talking about the postal address file, which is held as a private piece of property by Royal Mail. Now, I think it's really important to stress that this is not people's private information. This is not who lives at what address. It's about where the address is. And as the noble Lord Clement Jones set out, all kinds of companies are having to pay Royal Mail to have access to what this is basic information about society, basic information that is assembled by society for society. Now, the noble Lord mentioned Amazon having to pay for the file. I must admit I feel absolutely no sympathy there. The great parasite, I'm no fan of it. But it's an interesting contrast when we think of Amazon paying, but we also think of some new start-up, innovative company that wants to be able to access and reach people, deliver things to their home. And for them, the cost of acquiring this file could be absolutely prohibitive and stop them actually getting started, stop them competing against Amazon. And it's also something that I'm very interested in, the whole area of citizen science, and we're seeing huge developments of citizen science in areas that I often engage with, like birds and ecosystems, etc. But there's also a chance for citizens who have access to the data to use it in all kinds of interesting ways to help us all collectively as a society understand the social world that we live in, understand what's happening with that social world. This data is really crucial for people to be able to access that, and they absolutely should not have to pay to do that. One description of this is, and this is their self-description, so I'll use the term, it's a chance for civic-minded nerds to do all sorts of interesting things with the data. And I think it's worth just stressing that this amendment doesn't actually say how the government should do this. It's simply setting out the principle that the government should do this. So it doesn't leave open the, well, no, we should think this should be drafted somewhere else or approached some other way. It's simply saying, let's free the postal address file. So I very much hope we'll hear positive words and a positive direction from the noble Lord the Minister on Amendment 252.